All right, I'd like to call this hearing to order. Good morning. Let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As we're going to begin the final Wolf Creek hearing, let's begin with roll call.
Commissioner Stacy?
Here.
Commissioner Zoller?
Here.
Commissioner Wagner?
Here.
To clarify, hopefully, if you have not, you make sure you see the sign-in sheet over on that table before you would depart. This is the final hearing for the petition of Drainage Works, West Branch of Wolf Creek. The objective of this project is to remove obstructions from the main channel of the West Branch of Wolf Creek, beginning at the Seneca-Hancock County line near Alveda and continuing to the Seneca-Sandusky County line near Betsville. This time I'd like to call upon County Engineer Mark Zimmerman for his final report. Mark?
Thanks. On November 26th of last year, this year, I submitted my final report to the county commissioners. As far as the report recommendation, the county engineer submits this report to the commissioners to either affirm or set aside the prior order to grant the prayer petition for the ditch petition and instruct the engineer to proceed in accordance with ditch petition law. There are two things, and I just give a little history and explanation on where we are. The commissioners to date had first accepted the petition that was filed at the end of 2012, according with Ohio Revised Code. Ordered me as the county engineer to submit and prepare a preliminary report. That preliminary report was to estimate whether or not the benefits of the works of improvement, what the petition had petitioned, outweighs the cost of the project. Being that it is a drainage flood control project and we are in an area of the Old Great Black Swamp, any drainage works of improvement, of course, are valuable to farmlands and agricultural lands, as well as to homeowners and cities and villages. And so my preliminary estimate of costs and benefit did show that the benefits of the project do outweigh the costs. After that preliminary report, the commissioners had the opportunity to either order me to proceed to prepare plans and specifications and to deliver a final report, or to deny the petition, basically to say that in their opinion the costs don't, the costs outweigh the benefits. In that stage of the project, it's pretty much, if in the engineer's opinion that the benefits outweigh the costs, the commissioners are somewhat obligated there, by no means obligated, but are somewhat obligated to go to the next step. And they are, because my findings, if this were to go to court to say, the petitioner were to say, the engineer thinks the benefits outweigh the costs, why don't the commissioners think the benefits outweigh the costs? So with that in light, and with the opinions and the information that we had, the commissioners did require me to, and when I say require, I say that because the law requires them to order me to do these things. It's not an adversarial relationship that we have with the commissioner's office and the engineer's office, but the law does say order. So the commissioners do issue an order to me and requires me to proceed to the next step, which is developing the plans and specifications. We worked with the Soil and Water Conservation District. Joe and Jason did countless hours of boating and walking of the West Branch of Wolf Creek to locate the obstructions, which for this project are log jams, sand and silt bars, and dead and leaning trees that are imminent threats. If there is a tree that is just leaning over and it's a healthy tree, then there's no point in going through the expense of removing that tree. So after months of investigation, some really bad weather, The flooding last year, several windstorms. The project was completed. They delivered that information to me, and together we put together the plan for the location of obstructions, not primarily, but large log jams we classified as major, medium-sized, and minor log jams, associated costs with those. Trees were established at sizes ranging from less than 12 inches, 12 to 18 inches, 18 to 36 inches, and then 36 inches and above as far as estimation for costs of removing those trees. And sand and silt bars estimated once again as major, minor, and medium size. As far as sand and silt bars go, we are looking at the potential of removing sand and sediment bars that are obstructing the total flow of the channel. There are many cases where the inside of a curve, the water flows slower than it does on the outside of a curve. It's a natural deposition area where water drops its load. We are not going to remove a sandbar from an area that we know in a couple of years that sandbar is going to go right back, just by the nature of the channel. It wouldn't be a wise and prudent use of your funds. And don't think for a second that I don't understand and the three commissioners don't understand that the money that we are looking at spending today is yours. And if the petition is affirmed. So there is public monies involved. Townships have an assessment for the right-of-ways. The county has an assessment for our right-of-ways. The state has an assessment for their right-of-way. The city of Fostoria, of course, is a large contributor to the project and has agreed to take all of Fostoria's parcels as one and handle that through the city. So there is a lot of public money, but public money isn't always viewed the same as private money, especially when it's coming out of your pocket. So we do understand that monies that are being spent or would be spent are yours. To that end, today, well, why don't I go through a little bit about how we determine the assessments. All of you that are members of the group, and the group is anyone that drains water into the West Branch of Wolf Creek, are part of the petition and therefore part of the assessment schedule. You should have received an assessment paper in the mail. If you didn't, you will receive it within the next couple of days. Hopefully everybody has. On that is the benefited acreage for your parcel, the parcel number that identifies that individual parcel. Every parcel of land in Seneca County is identified with a unique parcel number. And then in there is the assessment and the zone. The zone was determined, the engineer is required to come up with a manner in which to assess. I wish that Ohio law said this is how the county engineer will assess, but they don't. They just say the county engineer shall assess. So what we did is we looked at buffer areas from the main channel to 500 feet, so those were primary benefits. Areas from 500 feet to 1,000 feet were secondary benefits. And then everybody more than 1,000 feet away from the main channel were determined to be more contributors than benefactors, people that benefit from the project, and therefore their assessments were set very low as far as the dollars per acre. If a particular parcel of land cuts through that line, there's a line that cuts through there where there's a 40-acre parcel and 20 acres of it is in zone 1 and 20 acres of it is in zone 2. On the paper you will see that there are actually two different assessments. There's an assessment for zone 1 and an assessment for zone 2. So if you're looking at your sheets and wondering why you've got two assessments for the same parcel number, make sure you look at the zone and see if it's not a zone 1, zone 2, or zone 3 breakup. There are some places where a parcel may have two zone 1 areas or two zone 2 areas because it was broken by a road, broken by a creek, broken by some physical boundary that split that parcel, and so the acreages still should add up to what they are supposed to be. Now, in determining this, we use our county's GIS program, the Geographical Information System that we have on file and of record. All of the acreages were determined based upon the computed acreage that the computer developed based on your parcel. There are a number of parcels that were not put in exactly true, and so your acreages may be off some. I've said in several meetings and said as a recommendation, and I say it again today, and hopefully people will look at it. If your assessment that we have on your sheet is different than what you have on your tax bills, which we're all getting, today, yesterday, last week, next week, make a copy of your tax bill for me. You can scratch out all the pertinent stuff. It's none of my business, and that's fine. But if you can show me that the parcel number and the acreages that are on file of record are different than what we have, of course I'll change those. And there's some people say, well, it's only $10, it's only $5, only $3, but it's your $10 or $5 or $3. So, let me know what those are. If we get enough of them, I've probably got about 15 of the 4,400 parcels that are in this watershed, so that's not bad so far. That I will be correcting if the project is affirmed. If we get a lot of those, what I may do is put together a worksheet that's on the Commissioner's website that you can just download, fill out the parcel number, your concern, or what you think's wrong with the information, and then those can be forwarded to me, and I can get them. And I only say that because I have one person answering phones in the office, and if I start getting hundreds of phone calls, which I don't anticipate, but if I do, then we're going to have to find another way to manage that. But I assure you that if acreages are not right, then they will be corrected. So I do have a copy of the map with me if anybody wants to see. It's not real large, but it is what it is. There are some 4,400 parcels in this watershed. That is a lot of parcels. It's a lot of people. That's a lot of mailing. We're required. There's a lot of questions of people asking, why did we have to send out this expensive mailing? Which in my opinion is ridiculous. But we are required by Ohio law to do this type of mailing. The other cheaper option that is also in Ohio law, the law is so old that type of mailing doesn't exist anymore. It literally doesn't exist. So there is a cheaper way to do than what we did. The law offers these two options, an expensive option or a cheap option. The cheap option, the post office quit doing a decade ago. So that's why it was required. And every step of this process is dictated by Ohio law. It's section 6131 of the Ohio Revised Code. And we have been pretty confident in my department and what we have done and through the Commissioner's office and what their responsibilities are, that we have followed the law. That doesn't mean that people necessarily agree with the manner in which we followed the law, but we followed the law. And when I say that, as far as how we determine assessments, how we determine benefits, how we determine costs, those things are, of course, debatable, and they are judgments. But when it comes to the law and what we have to do with the law, we have complied with those. So that's a little history on where they are. Today, at the final hearing, there are 8 factors that the commissioners, and I don't want to speak for you, but I'll kind of run through these 8, just to let you know that these are the 8 things that the commissioners, in their decision now to affirm or to set aside the project, that they are required to consider. The first is the cost of location and construction. The second is the compensation for lands to be taken. There are a number of projects, not this particular kind of project, but projects where you physically take land. Whether you take it through eminent domain or take it through the right-of-way process or take it through drainage easements. This particular project does not involve the taking of land. We're not looking at taking land and making it not yours anymore. The effect of land along and in the vicinity of the route, the effect of land below the lower terminus that may be, and the effect that may be caused, the sufficiency of the outlet, the benefit to public welfare, the benefit to land, public corporations in the state of Ohio, and then the catch-all, and the last one is any other proper matter. I'm not sure what any other proper matter is, but that's for the commissioners to hear, which I know they have heard many comments, pro and con for the project. I have heard many pro and con to the project. I don't stand here as an advocate for the project. I don't stand here as a person against the project. I stand here as your engineer to give the facts to the commissioners as I see them, for them to make a decision to affirm or to set aside. So, you know, through this entire process, what we do in my department, what Soil and Water has done in assisting in that process, is try to gather the facts, and those facts we present to the commissioners for them to make a decision. So, with that, I guess I'm here for, I mean, I don't want to.
We'll continue the hearing and begin next with questions for Mark.
Okay.
And, yeah. Okay. And as we go, Commissioner Wagner, or either commissioner has to ask their questions first, just to restate that this is a hearing. So we are here to hear things out and to let you ask questions of us and or Mark. So we'll begin with that part, but when you, for this part and or the next part for general comments, we do want you to make sure you state nice and loud, and I know hopefully you can hear me, my voice doesn't carry loud, but state your name and just location of residence, just for our recording, that is, we have to record these things, so for that documentation that we can tie in to pick up for those notes. Commissioner, your questions first?
I just had one question, and I asked this at the last hearing. I guess that wasn't the final hearing. The last hearing, when you presented your final report, you said that there are 8 things that we are supposed to consider to determine whether we grant the petition or not. And in your professional opinion as our expert, do you feel that those 8 are satisfactorily met?
Well, we all 8 of those items, well, some of them have no effect. So they were not considered, but they were all considered in the report, yes.
Thank you.
And I do have a couple other things, sorry, I don't want to.
No, that's fine.
And it may serve to answer some other questions, and I do this a lot, so I should write better notes down and stuff. I just tend to babble a lot. So, as far as requirements for contacts, Ohio law requires that we send plans and specifications for comments to the Ohio Department of Natural Resources. Those plans and specifications were sent. I have been in communication several times with the Department of Natural Resources. As early as Friday of last week, they are not done with their comments. So when we get those comments, they will be incorporated into plans if it is affirmed. So we were required to do that. We did. There is no requirement for them to comment as far as that goes, but we were required to submit. We have done so, and they will be submitting comments. They just aren't done with them. They're overworked and understaffed, you know, apparently, and haven't gotten to it yet. There have been several questions as far as the Corps of Engineers go. Have been in contact several times with the Corps of Engineers. Because we are not placing fill in the project area and have no intentions of placing fill to narrow the channel or to channelize this ditch, the Corps of Engineers has absolutely no jurisdiction on the channel. As far as the work goes, they regulate the channel completely, but no effect on what we're going to do. Up until about 8 years ago, they did, but the Corps and Ohio EPA were sued, and they lost a suit by a private landowner that wanted to remove trees and jams from a ditch. And it wasn't around here that they were sued, but the Corps lost that, and federal court said that people have the right to remove obstructions from the channel, as long as they're not changing the natural flow of the channel. So, as far as Ohio EPA goes, talk to the Ohio EPA. As long as we are not filling wetlands, As long as we are not filling the channel, then they have no authority, no jurisdiction over the petition project. So there will be no impact as far as the first stages of removing log jams and leaning trees. They may when it comes to, well, sediment bars, which we knew, but those are going to be down the road. And only because if we're going to remove sandbars, we have to put them somewhere. And if we can't get them far enough away, then we may need to pack them up along the bank, and if we do that, they may be jurisdictional. But for the beginning phases of this project, the Corps and Ohio EPA have no effect. Another thing that I had found in review and talking with many property owners is the hamlet of Bascom. From State Route 18 is a natural break of water to go north and to go south. And so on the watershed, State Route 18 is pretty much a watershed break. But the railroad, when it was installed many years ago, changed the natural flow of water. And because they did that, they have tiled a lot of Bascom out along the railroad and to go into the East Branch instead of the West Branch. I was there this morning. I've been there a couple of times to find where the pipes are that go under the railroad. When I find out where those are, I will redetermine that area of watershed. If you aren't draining this way, then you're not going to pay this way. If there's another project on the East Branch someday, then they would be part of that project. So, although the natural flow of water went that way, the railroad did intercept a lot of that water and take it via their railroad ditch out of this watershed into the East Branch, and I will be addressing that when I can find out. When I can physically get out on the railroad and find the pipes. So those are a couple other things that might have answers to the question.
Mark, I have a question for you. If this petition would be affirmed, could you kind of explain the repayment process and how that would be assessed on taxes? And I also understand that it would be the commissioner's responsibility to determine if that's done in a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year type thing. If you could explain that on a high level.
I'm not sure I can on a high level, but I'm here to explain it. As far as assessments go, the law allows the commissioners, and once again, this is all dictated by law, is anybody that has an assessment of $25 or less is required to pay that immediately upon the project bills coming due. Anybody that's over $25, the commissioners have the ability to take those fees and pay them over a number of tax bill cycles. So when I say tax bill cycles, I mean your semi-annual tax bill. That if, for instance, you had a $100 assessment and the commissioners decided to spread this project over 5 years, that would basically be $20 a year and $10 per tax assessment.
I have to correct just a little bit. 25 is one payment. If it's under 500, then it's two payments.
Okay.
If it's over 500, then the commissioners determine
Okay.
the assessment.
And there are between 300 to 400 property owners, about 350 parcels that are over that $500. So I failed to give you that information prior to today, but that's where 350, 400. It's hard to people in parcels.
Okay, so if it's under 25, it would go on their next tax bill. That would have to be paid in one payment.
Right.
If it is between 25 and 500, then it could go.
Then it would be
two tax bills by law, semi-annually or over 2 year period. Semi-annually.
It's
Okay.
with the tax.
So,
It's with your property tax.
okay, so if it's a 500, they would get 250 for the first half, 250 for the second half.
Right.
If it is over 500, then we would assess that could be over a 5 year period, correct?
3 year, 5 year.
Okay, that's determined by the
payment
commission.
schedule.
That's if we affirm
That's right.
the process.
Right. If the project is, well, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but it just, I guess the next steps of what we would be looking at doing, any landowner that is on the channel, that owns land adjacent to the channel, should have received at least one, if not two letters from my office, The first of which was asking if landowners are willing and able to remove the dead and leaning trees themselves. The second of which to ask them if they're willing and able to remove any log jams that are in their area that they own. As an incentive to do that, and I have always argued and always will argue that the best way to do a project is for people to take care of their own piece of ground, and then we don't need to do all of this work. If you've got a section that's got trees on it that are, hanging over the thing and are falling in, and you've got log jams, but there's just a couple of big trees that you can yank out of there with a tractor and a chain over the next summer or when you can get there, go do it. And if you are willing to do that, then those costs that are associated with that will remove from your assessment. So if you've got, and those landowners that have the largest assessments are of course the ones that are adjacent to the channel receiving the biggest benefit. If you can get that done and do that yourself, or have some buddies come over, or people that want firewood, and you get those things cut down and get them out of there, that's less work the county needs to do, that's less work on the contract, that we have to pay prevailing wages on, and you're taking care of the project on your own. A project this large is difficult to just do that, but I did receive comments back from a majority, not all, but a majority of landowners. Most of the landowners that I got comments back from said that they are willing and able to remove the dead and leaning trees themselves, that they are willing to at least try and attempt to remove some of the log jams. So if this project is affirmed, what my interest is and what I would like to do is, although it's a huge burden of time on my department, is that through the spring and through the summer I would like to meet with every property that has work that needs to be done on their channel. Go through that with them and see, walk the channel with them, mark the trees that need to come down, and see if they're willing to do that work themselves. See if they're willing to yank those logs out of the channel themselves and remove the log jams themselves. If they are, and we can get that done, then we can do this project much more reasonably, much cheaper, and much more efficiently and effectively than trying to have, Big Brother come in and do this project for us. So, I work for the government, and I'm a government employee, but I'm probably as anti-government as anybody here can stand, so.
The assessments will not happen until at least 15.
At least 15. Yeah, the initial stages of this project, before we could even attempt to start work, would be after crops are off next year. And that's just when we can get started. The process from here is not a fast process. Although if landowners can start getting work done, and that's the other reason I want to do that, is I would like to encourage people to get this work done. The more work you're willing to do yourselves, the less we have to do through government contract, which everybody knows is more expensive. That's no secret.
Questions for Mark, and please state your name and area of residence.
I'm Dwight Clary from Kansas. I have two questions. The removal of sandbars, is that going to be an ongoing process, maintenance type thing? Because usually sandbars will reform. And my second question is, when you was calculating the cost for landowners, was there any credit given to farmers that have filter strips and say no-till versus somebody's doing tillage right up to the shoulder of the creek thing?
The answer to the first question for the sandbars, the only sandbars that we are looking at removing are those that are directly the result of the log jams that are in front of them, to be honest with you. If there is a sandbar that is in the inside of a curve or a natural deposition area, we're not taking it out. I'm not going to take a sandbar out that's going to be right back. It makes no sense. So the cost for that would only be associated with those. There are a number of them that, as this, with the log jam there, the water stopped, dropped its load, we would need to do some work in those areas. There was no consideration given to areas of conservation now, as far as assessments go. It was strictly a location response to the proximity of the channel.
Trish Bryan with the Soil and Water Office. If this goes on maintenance, you do get discounted for filter strips and conservation practices
If you apply.
if you apply. So filter strips, you'd have a 20% reduction, and whole field CRP, you get additional percentage reduction.
If it goes under maintenance.
If it goes under maintenance, yeah.
My question when I came here was how to make this number go away.
I can tell you exactly how to do that, and that's get people to do work on their property.
And I don't know if I'm speaking for anybody else, but we're right out of Wolf Creek. Fred Smith's my neighbor, Richard Cruz's my neighbor. The city of Fox Ferry drains into my farm. It's 12 feet deep, it's 3,000 feet wide several times a year. There's not a damn thing you can do about that. And I made an agreement with Trish for Soil and Water to remove all the ash trees along the corridor. I've always cleaned out the log jams because I can't get to the other side of my field if I don't. And I cleaned out Steinmetz, Spruce, and Smith sometimes to keep up with it. And I'm getting about $2,000 for work I already agreed to do for the Seneca County Soil and Water Commission. And it's gonna benefit nobody. And trees are gonna keep dying and falling in the creek, so why are we doing this? Anybody have an answer?
Your name, please? For the record, your name.
My name?
Yes.
Jim Lawrence, San Angelo, Calcamugio.
Thank you. Okay. I don't know that there's a answer to your statement or question.
Yeah, I don't, as far as how to make it go away, I guess the question is, have people get it done? You know, there are appeals processes, you know, in the law. If a landowner does not like the decision, if the commissioners deny it or set it aside and somebody thinks needs to go forward, then they can appeal that decision. If the commissioners affirm it, and there's somebody that definitely thinks the project can't go forward, then they can appeal that decision. You know, there are property owners that that's an option. I don't necessarily recommend that as an option, but it's certainly out there for landowners. But the petition is a result of needing the flow of water, and if landowners can clean the channel and, you know, get that done, then that's the way it needs to be done. I mean, if everyone did what you do, then we wouldn't be here today. This project never would have started.
Was there a limit on acreage? You got a letter telling you could do your own work and do the assessment? I never got that letter. I got about 80 rods right along with it.
Then you probably don't have any work to be done on your property.
There's about 46 trees laying in right now.
Oh, well, and that's another thing that I will tell you is that the inventory that was done over the course of a year. There have been floods, windstorms, large windstorms. The one last year that had this county, Sandusky County, and Huron County closed for a week because of the trees and power lines that were down on the road. Our inventory was done before that. So the nature of what we're talking about doing and what we have estimated in this project, it's a moving target. Sandbars don't stay where they are. Log jams certainly don't stay where they are, and trees certainly don't always stay up. So everything we have identified in here, it may not be true anymore. I can guarantee that our plans and specifications are obsolete.
If he was overlooked on the letter to do some work, he can get back on your list by just giving Lisa your name or giving you his name.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah, well,
New York Township was
yeah.
9, and I would say it was all clear until last July.
Okay. Yes.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. I know exactly what you're talking about. So what we would do is there will be another letter sent out from my office. There are 74, I think, property owners that own ground on the main channel. And another letter will be sent out just a regular letter, and asking you to contact me to set up an appointment when it's good for you, that we can walk your property. And we wanna walk all the properties again. And see what work needs to be done. And, you know, that's the only way we can kind of get a better estimate of work that actually needs to be done today, as opposed to what needs to be done a year ago.
Dwight Clary, Kansas. You said that if a landowner, does the log jam clearing and all that themselves, that if I understood it right, you'll adjust down their assessment.
Mhm.
How does that work? Do they bring in the bill that they paid, to a contractor to do that, or,
Well, I'm hoping they just do it themselves.
well, how do you make that adjustment, is what I'm wanting to know? When the job, if they do the job, do they just come in and say, we did it, and you say, okay, or do you have to provide a bill from a contractor that did it?
I'm not really anticipating seeing any bills. I guess what I'm looking at is that if you've got 20 trees on your property and we need to have those removed, that either myself and we haven't even discussed it at some point as far as administration of this, an inspection, that myself or somebody from Soil and Water will go out and see if those 20 trees are gone, and I'll just mark it off your assessment.
But how's that gonna be figured, I guess? I'd like a little more detail.
Oh, as far as a dollar amount,
Yeah,
we have estimated.
Let's say you assessed $2,000
Yeah.
to a property, and they went in and took out all the trees
Yeah.
and log jams. Are they down to zero now, or how are you going to calculate that? How do they verify it, but you just stand
Yeah.
there?
Okay, we put a price on every tree and we put a price on every log jam. And that's what we'd be looking at. If you've got a lot of work though, and you've got a monstrous huge assessment, and I'm not gonna speak for the commissioners, but I really want people to do this themselves. I always have. That if you are willing to do the work, and you got a brother or a neighbor that's right next door that doesn't have any work to be done, and you two are willing to go together and do a huge amount of work because you've got a couple of log jams and a bunch of trees, just get it done. And then if he's willing to do the work, and you're willing to do the work, and you're willing to do the work, and Bronna's willing to go out and cut some trees down and get some firewood, then probably not Rhonda, but maybe, I don't know. Prosecutor need any firewood, so, yeah, make your kids do it. Then, we can adjust all that, so.
Trees over a certain inch diameter are worth a certain amount.
Right.
And they're different dollar values associated with the size of the tree.
Yeah.
The reason I was asking is I have a landlord that lives out of state, and they're not gonna be able to physically do it, but they might hire a contractor to do it.
Okay.
And that's why I wondered how this process was.
Okay, and if they hired a contractor, for instance, we aren't gonna reimburse a contractor.
No, I meant to
Okay,
prove
but-
that it was done so that you.
Yeah, we'll just come look at it. We'll mark the trees need to come out, and we'll go look at it.
Yeah, I didn't mean for you to reimburse the
Okay,
contractor.
yeah.
Additional questions?
I got a question, David Dillon. When you, send the billing out and stuff, are you gonna go make sure that you're billing the right amount, for the right amount of acreage, or not?
Everything was billed based upon what the computer generated for the parcel. I'm leaving it up to the property owners to find out if there's a discrepancy in the acreage, then I'll certainly change
Right,
it.
because you get, the letter we got in the mail says we have 2 acres and we only have an acre.
Okay.
So, I called you up about it, but you were supposed to get back, but you never did.
Well, I'm taking everybody that called and what I would have told you and everybody else that I'm not looking at anything until the commissioners affirm this. If they affirm it, then I'll go through and change all this, but I would have had all your stuff.
Straighten out before you send the billing out. Or put it on the taxes.
Well, 4,400 parcels, I can't check deeds on 4,400 parcels. So I didn't, and I'm not going to.
Additional questions for Nick?
Go ahead.
I got another question. Okay, now when you made this study and you did all this stuff, the flow of the water is supposed to go normal. Okay, now in your assessments, or not assessments, but your estimated cost, and when you went through there, did you go down through there and see where anybody filled in their land and made their land higher than the next person's? Or dammed up a side of the ditch to make the bank high so the water wouldn't flood their land?
No.
Or did it have to come out?
I didn't look at that.
Do what?
I did not look at that at all.
But do they have to come out though? Are they're restricting the flow of the water when they do that, push it on to somebody else? Would that all have to come back out?
Now, this project, as petitioned, was to remove log jams, sandbars and leaning trees. So we are not talking about doing any
Well,
chamber work.
what do you do then about people that dammed up the side of the ditch
Nothing.
with a creek? Well, who takes care of that then?
Well, any fill that is done along a creek, is regulated by the Corps.
Because you said you're not allowed, according to law, you're not allowed to do the flow of the creeks.
That's correct.
Okay, if they dam it up, and that lowland of theirs is not getting the water that it's supposed to be getting and pushing it on to somebody else, isn't that causing problems down the line?
Sure. Yep.
Causing maybe somebody else's land to erode?
It
Not
certainly
getting
could.
out?
Yeah.
Well, should that been in your estimate?
No, it's not what was petitioned. It's not part of this project at all.
Kevin Williams. Mark, has the United States Environmental Protection Agency been notified, consulted, or otherwise involved in this project?
US EPA is not, Ohio EPA is.
Any reason why the United States Environmental Protection Agency has not been notified?
Because they're of no effect in this project. They aren't required by law to be notified, and so they weren't. So if Ohio EPA has an issue, they contact US EPA, but there's no endangered species or federal water issues that are going on here.
Has the endangered species survey been completed?
There's no endangered species survey. We're not doing any endangered species work. So, you know, trees that need to be removed have to be removed during a certain period of time by law because of the Indiana bat. But, you know, that other than that, that's the only environmental constraint that we have as far as cutting trees down. And if landowners do it themselves and are known, that's only if we have a contract.
Additional questions for Mark? Yes.
Dalton Pope, Sandusky County line, last person on the project. Question for the commissioners. In the revised code that we're using, as the engineer has already stated, the commissioners have to have reports on the effects of the land along the creek and below the construction area and the need for a proper outlet, as he stated. I'm asking you, before you make your decision, do you have a outline report for any of those in writing? And if so, what are they? I think everybody here would like to know, and I would like to know. What are those reports, and do you have them in writing?
We have the engineer's final report, his preliminary report and his final report. I specifically asked him 3 times, once at one of our regular commissioners meetings, once today and once at the, before we granted the petition, if he felt, as our expert by law, that it met the 8 criteria set forth in law, and he felt that it did.
I understand that part, what he said, but you have to have a report other than just one individual, like the engineers can say he made a report, but where is it? What kind of report is it? What kind of report did he get?
This is his final report here.
Well, on the proper outlet, the effects of the stream below the project in the Sandusky County, or on my project, which is the end, I have no benefit whatsoever. I'm paying a large assessment, no benefit. But beyond that, by what you read in the revised code, you need to have a certified report on the effects and the effects of the project below it.
It says,
and have you made it, my knowledge is there's no effects been made in Sandusky County, nothing that's done. So what are we doing at the end of the project? Are we, where's our water gonna go and what effect will we have? That's what I'm trying to get to understand before you make a vote. We have no knowledge of that. There's nothing in this plan that states what effect we'll have in below the project.
in the 6131.21, it says, in determining whether or not the improvement shall be granted, the board shall consider the following factors, And those were considered in his final report, he's told me 3 times.
Right, he considered it, but do you have that in writing, what they are? What are those reports? What do they say? What is the effects? Have you made a study on those effects? That's what's in this revised code.
Mark, how was your conclusion drawn, I guess?
There are no written reports. I mean, as far as the efficiency of what happens in Sandusky County, we know Sandusky County floods. We know that the area downstream floods, especially when the river is up. And this project will not change that. We have discussed many times the project of it. There are no written reports to show the outlet. So,
Well, there's no study made. That's in the revised code. Is that correct?
those things, not a written report was not made, but there certainly was taken into consideration in the plan.
There's nothing in the revised code that there has to be a written report. It says, the way I read it, it says we have to consider the following factors. And I consider the final report a written report myself.
I think we need an opinion from the prosecutor on that.
I'm looking at the section right now, that's exactly what it says.
The what?
The factors that need to be considered, we discussed about 4 times.
Consider the factors.
Yes.
And which we have done, we've considered the factors.
Additional questions? Yes.
Did anybody involved in this give us any kind of cognitive, rational explanation as to who this is actually going to benefit? And what's the long-term effect? And let's say you're successful at removing all the log jams this week, and all the trees that are dead this month, and it's going to reoccur down the road a year from now. Let's say we're successful at all that. Downstream, do those people qualify for flood insurance? Has anybody thought about that? Where does all this water go? And what do those people think about it?
I don't, Mark, you have a question?
We're gonna be doing this again in 2 years.
Well, as part of the project, it is required to go on maintenance, which means it will get an inspection, annual inspection. And if there are issues in the channel, then those would be addressed that year. As far as flooding downstream, we are not proposing adding any single drop of additional water in this project that already comes through. What we are looking at doing is getting rid of the water that does come faster than what the river comes up, so that we can get rid of more water faster. Once the river's up, flow stops. But if we can get flow during that 1 to 2 day period all season long that we wouldn't have gotten before because it was all stuck in behind the log jams, then that is going to benefit all of the contributing ones. So that's I guess the rationale.
The question is that, okay, you're gonna go under the maintenance, we'll be under the maintenance deal, right? So every year, or whatever you decide, you're gonna come walk all these down through there, and if they got log jams, you're gonna take them out and charge the landowner every year, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, I'm not going to, but yes.
No,
But that's part of the maintenance
So
project.
that's what we're gonna be in, everybody's gonna be in this maintenance deal, so every year, somebody is gonna go down through there and check.
Right. As part of code, it is required that any conservation work of improvement, any project like this, goes under permanent maintenance. And the reason for that is so we're never doing this again.
Trish?
Individual landowners, if you have a log jam on your property, you are not gonna pay, the entire watershed will pay. So the cost is gonna be spread out amongst all of you, it's gonna be much, much less than what it initially cost.
Additional questions for Mark or any of us?
Office.
Jerome Miller, Tiffin. First one's an opinion, Mark. The flood on December 23rd. This won't stop the way.
Nope. Well, it won't stop the flood.
That much water, no matter how many log jams you get out, we're gonna have that mess that we had on the 23rd this year.
This is not a cure-all project. It is not gonna stop flooding. On every storm, no.
And you just stated, one of your philosophies is to beat that river down in Sandusky.
That's a big one.
Yeah, the philosophy is get the water out of the log jams, get down. Because you said the water from the creek stops and the river comes up or slows down or whatever.
Okay, thank you.
When this project was petitioned in 2012, it was right after a heavy rain in Betsville, and they closed the tracks, Betsville, State Route 12 at the tracks for flooding. Now, Gary, you're standing here, you're Mayor of Tiffin, you know, Betsville, you know what happened. This major flood on 23rd, closed the tracks on 12th.
The last letter, we
Yeah.
did, well, they didn't close it, we slowed the traffic down.
You had heavy water over
We
State
had
Route
water
12.
on Route 12.
Because what I'm getting at is, we have a Perry Lynch ditch that comes down through there behind Betsville, drains into Wolf Creek right about 500 feet where we're stopping with this project. And if you're gonna bring up Wolf Creek faster, if Sandusky River stops Wolf Creek, is Wolf Creek gonna stop our ditch, which drains right down through that center of Betsville? Are you gonna cause more problems in Betsville now that you got that water from Wolf Creek down there quick?
In my opinion, no. We're not.
Tim Zoller, Tiffin. I've been listening to all of the back and forth on this thing for how long now. And me and my wife went boating up in the river in Sandusky, up north of Fremont. And the mud that was on that boat when we got out of there. And I think this is more about taking out log jams. I think this is about getting that silt out of Lake Erie to try to prevent some of that. If anybody of you guys have heard of Walk Creek Bank, and watch what happens when you have a log jam, how it just blows them sidewalls right out and shoves all that dirt down to the lake. I think as property owners, we should be taking care of our lake better than that. And somebody's worrying about whether they're spending $25, $50, when you become a property owner, I feel that, you take that upon yourself to do the best job you can do, protect our environment. That's mine.
Any additional questions? And if not, we'll just phase this into general comments. Yes.
Currently, right now, the water's getting down quicker than it ever did before. It gets to the bridge there, the stone bridge there, but that's, so it's not getting through the bridge, it's going around the bridge. Is this gonna create more of a problem, wash out the bridge someday or something, with more water coming quicker? A third of the water is not going under the bridge, now it's going around the bridge.
Yeah, in my opinion, no.
Additional questions, not comments? Okay.
Michael Lamar, West Country Code 112. It's not more of a question, it's more of a kind of an informative thing. And a lot of you remember, this has been dealt with for a long, long time. And people have tried to get it taken care of, people blame the commissioners that are currently there and everything else. But you gotta stop thinking, Sandusky County does not want to clear out Wolf Creek. They wanna leave the aesthetics. So, there's where your problem's at. If anybody remembers, right there in Betsville, and where I just passed that bridge is where it goes, where it winds. But we can't do anything about Sandusky County. We have to take care of our county.
You people cry when you get flooded, you people cry when you don't get flooded. So make up your mind. Don't blame the commission. It's something that has to be done, any way you look at it. And if it's not costing people any money, fine, you're saving money. If you have to pay the assessment every year for maintenance, pay the maintenance. But get the project done. I've seen the water back up, clean up on 23 when Wolf Creek floods. So that's a long ways away from Betsville. And it's because of the log jams, the obstructions, everything else. So, you know, if you want to keep the property, keep it flooded, then don't go for it. If you want to save your property, go for it. But blame Sandusky County for the majority of the problems that we're having in Betsville and back up, because they will not clean Wolf Creek. The state of Ohio had to raise the bridge at Wolf Creek at 53 because of the flooding, because Sandusky County did not want to take care of their part of that road. The bridge at 53 at Wolf Creek would flood when we had a lot of high water, and they would shut down 53. 53 gets shut down in 3 spots right in there when we have flood water, because Sandusky County don't want to help us. So blame Sandusky County if you're going to blame anybody. But let's take care of our problem, because this has been going on for entirely too long, and people just cry and bellyache every time something happens.
If I can make a statement, in part of my research in this project at Wolf Creek, I had a meeting with Sandusky County engineers, the Sandusky County Commissioner, one of them, and the engineer back in November. And we walked the Sandusky part of of Wolf Creek. Now, we don't have a signed agreement, but we have a gentleman's agreement that if we open up Wolf Creek and the water still backs up at the Sandusky County line, that they would take corrective measures and to continue to clear out the Sandusky County part of it to the bridge, to the river. And again, that was discussions that we've had with the engineer and one of the commissioners that I had, not the other commissioners, but that I had with the Sandusky County. So.
But it's so much not the commissioners, it's the people that live along Wolf Creek in Sandusky County do not want the aesthetics of the creek changed. Period. So now they're the ones that you gotta get the word from. And a gentleman's agreement today doesn't mean anything.
No.
You may have a gentleman's agreement now, but when it happens, they might just turn around and say, we got nothing signed, we didn't shake hands, we go. Because the people don't want it. Remember that. Because they go back and bite you.
People don't want that.
Additional comments and or questions that would like to be made at this time? Yes.
You said there were 74 adjacent landowners.
I believe that's the correct number.
Okay, say all 74 of them done all their own work. The rest of us, the other 4,400 wouldn't get a bill. So what you're saying?
Well, that would, if everybody were to do their own work, then there would be no contract. And the only work that would need to be done would be if the commission's affirmative, it still needs to go on maintenance. And so there would be that 10% charge, that small charge for establishing maintenance, but you're right, there would be no bills.
No bill.
Can you state your name for the record, please?
Oh, John Nye, Kansas.
Thank you.
Cliff Hartline, I'm over by Kansas. You stated that you might pay the people that do it, so there would be some bill there, or that you're saying if they would do it for free?
Yeah, we're not gonna pay them, but we will take it off their assessments.
You'll take it off their assessments?
So, and if there's enough people that are willing to do it and the work can get done, then there won't be any assessments. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if there's no contract because there's no work, then there's no bill.
So the work someone gets done, have come up with the assessment, is that just their assessment? Is the entire?
No,
or is it just off theirs individual? I want to make sure that it's, okay.
We do the work as well as zero.
I'm sorry.
If you did the work, your,
If you do the work on your own property, your bill should be zero.
Basically,
Well,
if you're that high, yeah. If you've got that much work on your property, yeah.
I got a question for Mike. Okay, Mike, with these commissioners passed this petition, do you have a timetable when you're gonna start and how long it's gonna take?
The estimation is that nothing would start at least until the fall of 14, after crops are off. More than likely, the spring, summer, and fall of 15, the majority of it. And I say that because I want to make sure there's adequate time to meet with the property owners, see who is willing and able and to do work themselves before we actually try to put a contract together.
When you remove the log jams, how will those logs be handled? Will they be piled and burned, or will they be left in the field for the landowner to deal with?
Generally piled up into the upland, out of the channel way. If the landowner certainly has the right to burn them on their own property, anything that's removed from your property can be burned on your property. We cannot do that, but property owner certainly can.
So the field is adjacent, it'll be in the field.
Right along the tree line, yeah.
He said that 10% that's what figured for maintenance. Of what? 10% of what?
Of the assessment. Whatever if your assessment, there are a lot of people that have an $11 assessment, and the reason is that there's a $10 minimum by Ohio law. It can't be less than $10, and then at 10% minimum, there's $10 minimum plus 10%, which is $1 maintenance, is also in that assessment.
name for the record. Additional questions and or comments? Yes, back this way.
Roger Harris, 592. The maintenance fee, is that going to be assessed every year from whatever point in time this occurs?
Yes, and yes, but not necessarily at that rate. The funds for maintenance go into a particular fund for this project, and monies that are expended for the group are recollected from the group. So if there is $25,000 in the maintenance fund and the ditch maintenance department spends $5,000 that year, then that next year $5,000 would be collected to bring it back up. So it would not be that same number. It would be whatever comes out of the maintenance fund is should reestablish at that level.
John Nye again. Get back to this doing your own work and getting your assessment to zero. Can you show me what I can do? Get mine to zero?
Yeah, I'm going to meet with all the property owners. Yes.
I'm not along the creek. You have to show me what tree is cut.
Well, and that would be something that we would work out with the individual property owners. You know, and as far as this project goes, if I'm a landowner and I've got trees to come down, and I take those down and I'm along the channel, then that's a direct benefit. That's correct. If another landowner is doing work with somebody else, then that's something we'll look at too. But there aren't areas I can just say, well, you go over here and work, you go over here and work, you go over there and work. We can't do that, but individual property owners can. Does that make any sense?
If he's not on the main channel, he cannot get his reduced directly.
Not direct, right.
So the 74 people along there, they can get theirs reduced to zero, but I can't do that.
They cannot necessarily get it reduced to zero. It depends how many trees are in there,
right.
What work needs to be
Yeah,
done.
it depends on what work needs, right, if there's enough work to be done. And that's where all the work is on those property owners, so that's.
Then maybe they should do it.
And the assessment is different based on the zones.
Right.
So they're assessed the highest amount is that zone 1.
Mm-hmm.
I would be surprised if somebody can get it to zero, because they're still contributing to the flow of the project.
Oh, there are some property owners that have a lot of work to be done with the high assessment, and they can get there absolutely.
Okay, I apologize.
Yeah. Yeah, if you got large log jams that are estimated at $2,500 a piece, and you've got a $2,500 assessment, then you take one log jam out and you're to zero. Yeah.
Plus you benefit everybody else.
Plus you benefit everybody else.
Yes.
Roger Harris again. If, this is approved, or at the point it's approved, within 6 months or a year, everybody's going to send their assessment. Is that correct?
Mark's anticipating not until tax assessments in 2015 and
At
earlier.
least 15.
Additional comments and or questions? Yes.
Angela Company Jail, I was assessed, almost $2,000, and we don't have any trees that are still up that need to be cut, because they came out 2 years ago and marked them off, and we cut all the ones that bring down that are leaning, and there are no log jams, like, the adjacent property is full of log jams. Now, being that I'm assessed almost $2,000 for nothing that has to be done on my property, am I still paying for my neighbor who needs to have his jams taken out?
Basically, yeah, every landowner is
So I'm
paying.
still gonna have to pay, even though I have nothing to do on my 80 acres. And I'm paying for my neighbor because he hasn't done it.
That's what the petition process is.
I have to do is, almost 10 years ago, I was assessed to have a ditch cleaned out in front. And today, I'm still being assessed for that same ditch. And I'm worried if I'm getting to kind of have $1,800 or $1,900 on my taxes every year, is this gonna continue on as long as I live here? Because I have a lot of questions. This is gonna force me having to sell my property because I get to a point where I can no longer afford to live there. I pay $10,000 a year in taxes. And I live in Seneca County. You know, I have farmland. And the only thing I grow is hay for crop. I don't make a lot of money, but just enough maybe to pay some taxes. And this is very, very, I'm very concerned about it.
The commissioners approve the assessments each year of all the ditches that are on county maintenance, and it's a different number each year depending on the amount of work that needs to be done. A lot of years it's 0, some years it's 5%, some years it's 10%, depending on what work needs to be done. That would be a percentage of the original assessment, so it'd be different every year depending on the work that needs to be done. A lot of years there's 0, I don't know how this will come down.
Well, I'm kind of concerned, the $30 a half that I pay for the ditch is no big deal, but $2,000 a month.
Okay, if I can correct, the $2,000 that you were assessed, that's to clean the ditch up. Only 10% of that is put in there for the ditch maintenance. So there's 200 that's put in there for ditch maintenance. Is that correct, Mark?
That's correct.
That would be every year.
No, the odds of them spending depleting the entire maintenance fund to 0 every year that'd be tough. I mean.
It won't happen, I tell you.
No, so I would say that there will be work to be done on the channel, every year, but not a full-blown, that would be, for you to get a $2 assessment, that would be doing this amount of work every year.
If I can make a comment, I mean, this is 40 years plus to get us to this point, which the $2,000, actually 1,800, roughly 1,800 of that is to take care of 40 years of problems. 200 is going into a bank account, which can be used to take care of the reoccurring thing. And again, what we got here is we got 40 plus years of ills that we're trying to correct.
Well, I've been there for 20 years, and before I bought the property and built a home on it, I was told that this ditch had been cleaned out, and the whole property was clear cut, and the whole ditch was dug out, the whole little creek was dug out. And that's when the Dillons used to own it. So this project is like going on, it's gonna happen again. You have a little land, you can't farm it, so trees and everything grows. So this is just probably gonna be happening again after so many years. Of course, I probably won't be alive anymore,
But there's only 200 of your assessment that's put in there.
Can I
Yes,
explain a little bit? Tia Rice with Senate Saltwater. Let's talk a little bit about what maintenance would look like. We're really jumping again because we haven't even approved the project yet. But if you looked on average for a ditch project, you won't be charged that. The assessment that you're seeing now is for the beginning project, is for the construction cost. Assessments are based on what the original construction cost are for, in the future. So like, if you're already on a ditch, we base our assessments on that original construction cost. On average, you're looking at maybe 5 to 10% if we do work on the channel. We typically can't hold more than 20% if we don't have a project in the works. So we can't just charge whatever we want. If we want to charge more, we have to have a project in the work for that ditch. So looking at what you got on that piece of paper, that's the assessment for construction cost. Maintenance is going to be totally different, and you're going to look at maybe on average 5 to 10%, and that's only typically if we're doing work on it. I mean, I don't think there's only been one or two times that we've had higher than a 20% assessment, and that's because I had a ditch that was in the negative, was in the red. We had done a lot of work, and so we were having to catch that ditch back up and get it back into the black. So understand that the assessments that you see now are not the assessments that you see year after year after year. Those assessments will be different and will be lower. So.
What's the most they can be? What percentage is the most they can be?
Well, it can be 100% of your assessment if we go in and have to do a major project. I mean, by law, we can only collect 20% a year if we don't have a project in the works. If we have work that needs to be done, we could collect all the amount of the project. So if we have to do a dip out, we can collect the full amount of the dip out. But we don't typically. We typically collect over a period of 3 years on dip outs. You know, we don't typically, on average, we hardly have ever collected over 20%. I think that's only, I've been here 10 years and that's only happened once.
That only happens when the ditch was constructed in the 60s or the 70s, and that cost back then does not equal the cost now, then the percentage is going to be higher.
So, that was
That's
Trish.
the only Trish and Brian's.
Okay, so that's just a little, but we are jumping way ahead of ourselves because we haven't even approved the project yet, so. To the back.
Kevin Williams, I have a question. I'm trying to clarify my thinking. Of the 74 adjacent landowners who have the potential to reduce their assessment to zero by completing the work on their section of the stream, what is the equity in law for the non-adjacent landowners who do not have that same opportunity to eliminate their assessment?
I don't know that I can answer that, or that any of us here can answer that, Rhonda. That would have to be looked into.
I don't know if we do or not, because it's not a legal question. We're just trying to get people to do work on their own ditch. It's not a matter of legal equity, because it's not a legal question. The question is, can we get the work done without having to go to contract to do it?
Well, there's certainly a legal question. I'm not going to argue the legality of it in this form, but I would disagree with that.
Okay.
Right here, please.
That's Wayne Thompson, Kansas, and I have adjacent property along the creek. Do I understand this right? In order for the adjacent landowners to get 0%, 100% of the people have to do the work?
Nope. If for an adjacent landowner,
100% of the people,
yeah,
adjacent properties, if they clean that.
If everybody cleaned the ditch in the next 9 months.
But if only 50% of them clean it, everybody, adjacent owners are gonna get stuff, right? Yeah.
Much cheaper.
So get on the.
Any person that's willing to cut a single tree down is gonna make the entire project cheaper.
To the back.
Yeah, Del Pope again. Back when Mr. Zoller was making a reference as to viewing the street in November, I happened to be there too, and so did our county engineer from Sandusky County, and in reference to some people wondering why Sandusky County wasn't doing anything. Comment made by our county engineer said, standing right beside him, we were looking at the stream, this looks like a river. We have, and then Mr. Miller and the county engineer and the commissioner from Sandusky County said, there's no problems with the flow in Sandusky County. Is that correct?
That is my
We're holding the water back.
Because there's white water in Sandusky
Right.
County.
So now, why are we still getting flooded then? The water's coming down, you can't get into the river, it's backing up, and now you wanna bring it down faster to make it worse in our area. Now, you wonder why we're complaining, those are the facts, and the facts were rated that day. This is like a river in our area, it's what, 100, 200 feet wide?
At least.
At least? And how much do we need in compared to the rest of the stream? And why are we still getting more floods? In flood stage, it's like 600 feet in rapid cutting soil with sand. We have sand in Sandusky County. And the rock bottom, it's gone. People wondering about the Sandusky River north, why we're getting soaked. If there's no problems, we're not holding water back. It's like a river. It's coming too fast, it's washing huge trees and everything out. Clear back off the stream, cutting new channels. And it's wide open, like they said.
Not all of Wolf Creek is wide open.
Depends on where you wanna look, which channel you're looking at.
But if you look at right there at Betsville.
That is not the Sandusky County.
That's right at the start of Sandusky County.
Well, I guess to eliminate that conversation between landowners, because I mean, you're right. The section of ditch we looked at was twice the distance across than what most areas of the Sandusky River are. So to do work in that area would be senseless. I mean, senseless. You couldn't. I didn't know where you would start. So to your point, we did meet, and you're right. It's bigger than a river up there. So.
Is this a legal formality, or are you folks already made up your mind?
This is the final hearing, and giving the opportunity for what the discussions that have Mark prepared his final report, and we have to move forward and or set aside the petition is the plan for this final hearing today. Any other comments and or questions? Come before the hearing board.
Commissioner, I'd like to make a comment to Mr. Pope and to address your issue that the water is already flowing down and that Sandusky County is a river. The thought process that was brought up is that it takes about 2 days for the Sandusky River to rise. If the water comes down slower from Wolf Creek, by the time it gets to the Sandusky River, the river's rose, so it backs up. So if the thought process, if we get the water down quicker, down to the river before the river rises, that way it can flow out.
I understand that, but I happen to have lived in that area for over 50 years, and I haven't seen that. The actual fact is maybe once in maybe 20. And I'm sure there's many other people who live in the area who say it sounds like a good idea. But we've already got the water flowing too fast, it's causing problems down in our area. Yet you want to speed it up and get it there faster, make it faster yet. That's one of our main problems.
Mark, what's the elevation between the lake or the river and Seneca County?
I would have to look at that. We didn't study that. I don't know.
It's quite a drop, isn't it?
Yeah, Dalton probably know that better.
Madam Chair, I make a few comments and a motion with the letter A few comments before the motion here. Throughout this process, the commissioners have tried simply to follow the Ohio Revised Code. We all held up our hands and swore that we would follow the laws we were sworn into office. Once a petition is filed to have a ditch cleaned through the petition process, it sets forth a series of events to determine whether or not we grant the petition. It's not whether I like the project or whether I like the people involved with the project or don't like them, that's irrelevant. We've tried simply to follow the law throughout this process. We've had the viewings, the hearings, the mailings. We've ordered the engineer to do a report. We've received his preliminary report, his final report. Now, according to Ohio Revised Code, at the final hearing, we either affirm the decision granting the petition, which we granted it back in December of 12. We either affirm that or we set it aside. There are 8 things that we consider. I have asked Mr. Zimmerman 3 times whether he feels those are satisfactorily met as our expert, and he feels that they are. So based on that fact, I feel this board is obligated by law to affirm the granting of the petition. Therefore, I move that we grant the petition, I move that the granting of the petition be affirmed and we proceed with the work.
Do I have a second?
I would second that.
I have a motion and a second to grant the petition, and we had prepared 2 resolutions, one if it was granted and one if it was set aside. I would ask the clerk at this point just to state the title of that resolution and maybe the opening part of it. I don't know, I don't think it's necessary to read the whole resolution.
I have the 2, we're doing on the affirming. Resolution affirming the board's orders, a resolution affirming the board's orders of granting the petition and ordering the Seneca County engineer to remove obstructions from the main channel of the west branch of Wolf Creek.
Thank you. And then from the hearing board, any additional comments or questions? Take the roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Wagner,
Yes.
Commissioner Zoller,
Yes.
Commissioner Stacy.
Yes. Petition is affirmed. At this point then, since we have affirmed, we will have to deal with the resolution to establish the payment structure. That is the additional part of that from 6131.23. It is outlined as stated earlier in discussions today. That payment process up to anything over $500. And we have a draft resolution prepared as well so that this could be acted upon if we affirmed to determine what that would be. And in this resolution, which is in the matter of resolution setting the payment structure for the main channel of the west branch of Wolf Creek, and in the 6th paragraph, it outlines what 6131.23 states, which is that in a nutshell, under $25, it's upon the billing in 1 payment, up to $500, 2 payments in semi-annual in accordance with your other tax assessments, and if over $500, we have the ability to set up a structure. Do I have a motion motion for the structure we'd like to do? Looking a little bit back in research, I think we discussed this when Mark was in before the meeting, was that with another petition, we did do get over 10 semi-annual payments, which would have been a 5-year payback. So I want the desires of the board. If that's the resolution you want to proceed with, and so I need a motion.
I would make a motion that we accept that as outlined there, the 25,500 5-year assessment on the property tax.
I will second that.
I have a motion and I have a second. Any additional comments?
They can pay sooner if they wish, but that's allowed up to 5 years, is my understanding.
Roll call vote.
Commissioner Wagner,
Yes.
Commissioner Zoller,
Yes.
Commissioner Stacy.
Yes. Motion approved. Just a final statement before we adjourn. If you did not, there is a sign-in sheet on a red clipboard over here at this table. If you joined us after we were in process and did not sign in on that, we would please like you to do that. Have a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Hey, we stand.